The second half of Season 2 of Shadowhunters has kicked off and a new threat is in town as well as a new mysterious character, so let's get this episode of What Happened started. What's up, you lovely people? Rejoice because Shadowhunters is back and it's already off to an explosive start. But before I get there, just a little bit of Shadowhunters news that was just announced today. Dominic Sherwood, who plays Jace, his real-life girlfriend Sarah Hyland, who you may know from Modern Family, is actually going to be guest starring in Season 2B in about 2 episodes, but of course we don't know what episodes yet, and her character is being kept under wraps, so that should be pretty interesting to see. Now, if you need a speedy little recap of where we left off with Season 2A, here we go. We left off with Jace learning he wasn't Clary's brother, Simon turning into a daylighter thanks to Jace's angel blood, someone walking off with a soul sword, Izzy addicted to Yin-Fen, the Downworlders pissed at the Shadowhunters, Valentine in custody, and the Mortal Cup still unaccounted for. So who should I kick this recap off with? Let's just start with our new daylighter, Simon. Now he's basically over the moon that he is a daylighter and can go out, you know, in the sunlight, kind of be, in a sense, normal, right? Well, he's on a day date with Clary in the park on his favorite bench with probably some of the worst TV green screen work I've seen in a while. Love you, Shadowhunters, but really you couldn't make this scene look any more real? Anyway, he's a little nervous about his new abilities and what kind of things that may cause with other vampires and everything. But Clary is there to comfort him, they kiss, and then Jace shows up and interrupts them in order to bring Clary back to the Institute. Now as Clary is gathering her stuff, Jace and Simon have one of their usual awkward moments as Simon tells Jace that the secret about his angel blood turning Simon into a daylighter is safe with him. But Jace is like not fully sure or convinced that it's his blood that actually triggered Simon to become a daylighter. However, Simon says he'll keep the secret because let's face it, if the other vampires found out about Simon having some sort of cure that allows him to go out in the day, yeah, everybody would be wanting Jace's blood. Simon then wants to hug and thank Jace, but that just causes this hilarious moment.
Get in here.
Stop it. No. Never.
I mean, you gotta love these two, right? We next see Simon at the Hunter's Moon, and it looks like he's trying to get a hold of his old bandmates that were supposed to meet him, but don't show, and it seems like Simon is pretty thrilled to basically be back to normal. He's about to leave when Mea stops him and is like, hey, it's daytime outside, you can't leave. Simon then shows Mea that he can stand in the sunlight, and when she asks how it happened, he of course lies to her because, well, he said he would protect Jace. Mea then tells Simon to be careful because now that he has what every Downworlder wants, which is the chance to live a normal life, he shouldn't flaunt it. Unfortunately, Simon's happiness is interrupted pretty quickly by Raphael, who surprises him back at home and has overheard Simon's conversation with Clary, where Simon's kind of ecstatic that he wants to start a normal life, go to NYU, be in a band, all that kind of stuff. Raphael tells Simon that he heard a rumor that he was at the Hunter's Moon in the middle of the day, and how if it's true then Simon must be a daylighter, which is something Raphael has only heard of from old legends. When Raphael asks Simon how it happened, Simon once again lies, and I have a feeling Raphael isn't quite buying it though. So just how long until Simon's secret is truly out? For Luke, things don't seem to be going so well. His pack is basically turning on him, except for Mea, who is loyal. In fact, one of his pack, Russell, challenges him and eventually ends up leaving with a couple of the other pack to go to Philly to start their own pack. Luke, however, isn't so worried by this, and he tells Mea that he's actually been recruiting new members for their pack from other packs, and they'll basically figure everything out. Oh, and Luke also has a new partner who is pretty much super annoying and talks a lot and is just very nosy. Now, before Mea showed up to talk to Luke, Luke and his partner Molly were in the car, and she was basically being a chatty Cathy, trying to ask Luke a little bit actually about his personal life. But you don't trust anyone on this show, and while Luke and Mea were outside talking, Molly's actually seen in the car snapping photos. So what is her agenda? Who's she working for? We do know that she couldn't see Jace, Clary, and Alec earlier in the episode when they were talking to Luke at a crime scene, which I'll talk about in a second. So yeah, who the hell is Molly supposed to be and what is she up to? Moving on to Izzy, who helps introduce us to Sebastian, played by Will Tudor. Now, the first half of the season, I was actually starting to get annoyed by Izzy and this whole kind of drug, Yin-Fen, vampire venom storyline, but now it's finally serving a purpose, so I get it. Now, Izzy's trying to kick that vampire venom and Yin-Fen addiction, and things aren't going so well. She is having withdrawals that are so so bad. And sweet, sweet Alec, he is by her side trying to help her through all of this. And we think Izzy is actually really trying to kind of get through this, but as soon as Alec gets a call and is pulled away, Izzy goes back to the dark side. She heads over to Raphael's and pretends to apologize, but basically, she's just trying to get another hit from him, another hit of vampire venom. Thankfully, Raphael has wisened up and refuses to give in to the temptation of Izzy and says he's doing it just because he cares about her, but she is in such a dark place. She ends up threatening him and pulling out a knife. Thankfully, she does not give in to that murderous temptation. She gets a hold of herself, drops the knife, runs out. So where does she go? She goes back to that sketchy alley trying to find the vampire den, but before she can, someone ends up finding her. Who is it? The greater demon, which I'll talk about a little bit more in a second, but he demands to know where the mortal cup is, throws her against the wall. As most of you probably know, Izzy wears this necklace that can sense the presence of demons. It's a family heirloom, and so we do see it start to pulse, but then the demon pulls it off, kind of breaks it, throws it to the ground. But before the demon can do anything to her, really, a mysterious figure swoops in with a sword, and the demon flies off, scares him away. So who is this guy? Well, we do learn that he is a shadow hunter named Sebastian. So Sebastian takes Izzy back to his place where he knows that she's coming off a venom addiction or a yin-fen addiction, and he offers her some kind of medicine that will help ease the pain, but it'll wear off quickly, but hopefully it's not as addictive as that yin-fen was for helping with the other pain. Sebastian then tells her he's from the London Institute and he ended up in New York because he himself had to learn to kick a yin-fen addiction and he needed to be kind of alone to do it, and London wasn't the best place for him. Sebastian ends up convincing Izzy to stay with him for at least a day because she really needs that time to kick the habit if she's really serious about it. So when the two are eating dinner, Sebastian talks a little bit about his mom, and he ends up revealing that, his mom is gone now, and even though she was kind of miserable, she loved him, even if she had a strange way of showing it. Alright, that piqued my interest. Who's your mom there, Sebastian? Well, if you read the books, you know just who Sebastian is, but if you haven't, you definitely have to keep watching the season, and this is kind of a good tease for it. Izzy does end up calling Alec to finally tell her that she's okay. She then sees Sebastian at the stove where he is boiling some water for tea, and the teapot is just whistling, and he's not moving or really grabbing it off, so she's like, approaching and is like, hey, I think your water's ready. She can't see it, but we can see it. Sebastian has his hand over the other burner and is just burning his hand and seems to be so zoned out. But then he quickly flips something on in his head and he turns to Izzy and is just like, hey, what do you want in your tea? Yeah, Sebastian is definitely interesting. I already know he definitely has a lot of secrets, and I'm excited to see how they unfold in the rest of the season. Now let's move on to the whole greater demon storyline, which I mentioned kind of briefly before. The episode opens with Jace and Alec training and wrestling and talking about their feelings and whatever, and basically kind of getting out their aggression about what happened at the end of the first half of the season. And I kind of feel like this whole opening scene is great fuel for those who love to write fan fiction. Anyway, Alec asks Jace if he's going to tell Clary that they're not related, and Jace is like, no, I'm not, because she has such a good thing with Simon right now, I don't want to ruin that. Now, Valentine is being held captive, and the Inquisitor of the Clave, Imogen Herondale, is basically torturing him, trying to get information out of him. And of course, everyone wants to know where the mortal cup is. Valentine says that he doesn't even know, so she keeps burning him, torturing him. We get a flashback to see Valentine as a little kid trapped in a ring of fire. Not quite sure what exactly this means, but then we see Jace and Clary talking to the Inquisitor, and Jace asks if we want to know the truth of where the mortal cup is, why don't we just use the soul sword on him, since the Clave apparently recovered it after the attack. Well, Imogen, the Inquisitor, says that the rune Clary used to deactivate the sword actually damaged it, so it's been sent to the Iron Sisters to be purified. I feel like that's such a nice story, Inquisitor, but if you remember, the end of the last episode showed a man walking away with the sword, but we don't know who it is, so I'm calling BS on that whole Inquisitor story. I feel like someone else totally stole that sword. But who? Like, really? Who has the soul sword? We then see a man walk into a restaurant where he asks for the mortal cup at the bar, and sitting there is some of Herondale's security detail, and he demands to know where the cup is. Now, they say they have no idea and that even Valentine won't tell anyone where it is, so what does this mysterious man do? Yeah, he kills the guy, and then decides to just kill everybody in the restaurant. Yeah, who is this bad guy? Well, Luke's now at the crime scene where he's seen talking to Jace, Clary, and Alec, and they say that it's definitely a demon attack, so they try to figure out what happened. They end up learning from Luke, who has made this incident look like a tragic gas leak to everybody else, that the victims ended up dying from massive brain hemorrhaging, which is something only a greater demon can do. And these greater demons are much worse, obviously, since they're called greater demons, than regular demons. During this time, Clary is also pretty worried about Jace, who's been pretty closed off emotionally since everything that happened in the 2A finale, and Clary offers to be his shoulder to cry on since, you know, they're brother and sister, or so she thinks. And of course, this is pretty awkward for Jace, and he just tells her, you know, we don't need to talk, I'm fine. Alec goes on to relay the news of this greater demon to Magnus and brings him a sample of some sand that they found on the victims. Magnus ends up revealing some pretty bad news, that the sand is from the worst dimension of hell, and that the greater demon that has been released is Azazel, one of the princes of hell. Now, after Magnus tells Alec this, we see Raphael appear from the shadows, and Alec is definitely not happy with this because of everything with Izzy, but Raphael is actually there in good faith to tell Alec what happened earlier with Izzy and that she's run off to probably the nearest vampire den and they really need to find her. So the three of them go off to the alley. They see the guys that Azazel killed while attacking Izzy, and then they find Izzy's necklace, so they immediately assume that Izzy has been taken captive by Azazel. Now, Clary and Jace are definitely determined to get some answers to everything, including where the mortal cup is, from Valentine, so they go to him and demand to know who released Azazel, and Valentine is like, I don't know, and even he doesn't know where the cup is, but he has a plan. Of course, it's Valentine. He always has some kind of wheels working in his head, right? Even when he is tied up and looks like Hannibal Lecter. Valentine suggests they use him for bait if they really want to draw out Azazel to get Izzy back, because it seems like only the mortal cup can control the greater demons. So yeah, he wants to set up a trap to lure Azazel. Now, Jace thinks this in itself is a trap from Valentine, but Valentine insists that it's not a trap because he would never hurt Clary. And then this prompts Clary to say, but you know, what about Jace? You know, you don't want to hurt Jace because he's your son, right? Well, yeah, Valentine's, oh, you didn't tell her. Basically, it forces Jace to tell Clary that they are not, in fact, related. And Jace, once again, says he didn't want to tell Clary because he didn't want to ruin what she has with Simon. And then she kind of is upset and basically yells at him and is like, why have you been keeping all your thoughts and feelings bottled up inside? We need to be able to trust each other, and she just wants him to feel something. Claire, he does feel something. It's called love for you. We then see Alec finding Jace out on the rooftop, and Jace is bawling his eyes out and letting all those emotions Clary wanted to see out. And the two brothers embrace, and it's a sweet moment. The group then grab Magnus to carry out their Valentine trap set for Azazel, and Magnus is able to summon him, but Azazel tells them he doesn't actually have Izzy. Now, I'm not sure if they quite believe him, but then Clary walks out to try to basically get rid of him with her new sunlight rune, but that plan doesn't work out like they hoped, and her sunlight rune just doesn't work, and the rest just starts to go wrong. Now, Azazel ends up unleashing some kind of spell, thing, I don't know what it is, an intense sound that just basically makes everybody fall to the ground, puts them out of commission pretty much, and then he goes over to Valentine, grabs his head and says, I have a present for you. Now, we're not quite sure what he's doing to Valentine, but I don't think it could be good, right? We then see Jace actually activate one of his runes without using his status, and he goes after Azazel, but Azazel ends up flying away, and Alec is like, yo dude, how'd you activate your rune like that? Well, we know that Clary has the ability to draw new runes and see them because of her angel blood, and it looks like we might have just found out what angel blood does for Jace. Now, what did Azazel do to Valentine? Well, we're not quite sure, but we do see Valentine wake up and he just keeps screaming, help me. So, I don't know if he's having visions or things put in his head. Guess we'll find out, right? Now, after the whole Valentine bait plan goes awry, Magnus seems a little off, and we see him walking home on the street, shaken up, looking at his hands, and then we hear him call himself basically a disgusting warlock, which is something I don't think Magnus would ever say to himself. So is that actually Magnus? Alright, so I think this is actually a pretty good way to kick off this half of the season. We now have three kind of mysterious characters to keep our eyes on: Molly, Luke's new partner, Sebastian, and Azazel. I also don't think this whole thing between the Downworld versus Shadowhunters is going to be resolved anytime soon. And also, we really still don't know what happened to the Soul Sword. Now, what's coming up in the next episode? Let's take a look at the promo.
You trapped me inside of a filthy warlock.
I'm not Valentine! I'm Magnus Bane!
You do not want to fall for his lies. You have to believe me. This sick game of yours is over.
Alright, y'all, what did you think of this episode? How do you think the Greater Demon will really affect the rest of the season? And what do you think of Will Tudor as Sebastian? For those that read the books, is he the Sebastian you kind of pictured? Also, who do you think Sarah Hyland will be playing in her 2 episodes? Leave all your thoughts down below in the comments or on my socials, and then you can click right over here to see the brand new trailers for Season 5 of The Fosters or the That's So Raven spinoff, Raven's Home. Don't forget to subscribe if you like what you see, and as always, I'm Lisa. I'll see you next time. Thanks for hanging out with me while I just regurgitate what happened in a TV episode.